Welcome back to part 2 of the season 2, episode 2 of the Whiteboard Game. Thank you for joining us again. We're about to talk about our 6th extracts that we have used. You should have watched part 1 if you haven't. We're discussing different songs in which have inspired our new album.
Yes, we are.
Which we'd love for you to listen to and tell you what you think. Tell us what you think. So please do that.
Yeah.
But you have tuned in for this episode, so stay the whole mile, and we will discuss some of our music.
Yeah.
So
I promise you that I did not embarrass myself in any way in the first part. I promise that I didn't do that at any point, especially not towards the end.
That definitely didn't happen.
No.
Your number 6 is one in which I think I know the artist for. I think it's 10cc.
Yeah. Don't ask why they're called that. Top 10 questions to not ask as a musician.
What tipped me off is that in the chorus where they sing One Night in Paris, which I have put as the title for this track, they sing it in a French accent, which feels like a very 10cc thing to do.
Yeah, that's really tickled me. But you're right.
And that's a pop rock. I don't really know their genre totally. Maybe it fits in a little bit. 1974. I'm not sure if this is off of... the
one we listened to?
There's one that we listened to, and there's another one that's called the original soundtrack. Yeah. I can't remember the one we listened to, which
How dare you?
I should. Yes, how dare you? Yeah.
How dare you?
Shoe Bins is a so that's what I think.
4 points.
Wow.
I'm going to give you the genre.
Thank you.
No, I am. I established in the first half that we were being nice. So I'm going to continue being nice. The reason why I was almost picky about the genre is because the main reason why I've chosen this one is probably the genre of it. And this is one of my general influence choices. I think... let me say this first. Yeah, it's 10cc. One Night in Paris, Une Nuit à Paris, 1975. Art rock, or more prominently, prog rock.
Okay.
I think prog rock, a lot of different bands, different bands that people talk about. People want to talk about your Pink Floyds, or your King Crimsons, or your Rushes. I'm also a very big Genesis fan. I'm going to make a very bold claim here that 2 songs in particular by 10cc, one off How Dare You, called Don't Hang Up, and this 3-part song off of the original soundtrack, One Night in Paris, Une Nuit à Paris, are for me the 2 truest prog rock songs I have ever encountered.
Wow.
Because I think that what some prog rock can be guilty of, Genesis can be guilty of it, and so it's inspired me to be guilty of it on occasion, is lingering too long in certain things.
Okay.
There are probably certain chord progressions or riffs that I could probably leave sooner than I do when writing certain things. I know Genesis, I think Pink Floyd do it as well. I think they sometimes stay very long in one chord progression, right? And they just solo and stuff for quite a long time. 10cc don't do it, they don't wait. It is like a soundtrack, it is like a film. They're longer songs because they have a section for a minute, then go into another one for a minute, and they're just always moving. And that's why I say I think it's the truest prog rock, because it just keeps progressing. And I think that's really impressive, to be able to create something that's cohesive and coherent, but that is changing all the time. Not only shows great artistry, but as I say, it's fun. It's really fun. And one thing I try to capture when writing, and it's a word I've used so many times when talking to you about it, is journey.
Yeah.
I love a song that has a journey in it, that starts somewhere, has a trajectory, and ends somewhere. I feel like I've been taken somewhere, and I really enjoy that. I think 10cc are masters. When they write a longer song, I think it's genius. This has an opening section which is like at a bar somewhere, and it's welcoming you to Paris. Then there's a kind of story section which is kind of like jazz, which talks about some kind of I don't know, fraud or burglary. One Night in Paris, there's a Lady of the Night, I think, and the gendarmerie get involved. There's this bit where they're talking about a tourist coming to Paris, I think, and they go like, is he gonna buy or is he gonna pay? Is he gonna fall in love the old American way?
Oh yes.
There's another bit where they're critiquing this guy, saying like, you're not that romantic at all. You don't belong in Paris. What is that? No, you ain't no Casanova. You can't even do the bossa nova or the tango or the samba. And then suddenly it becomes a samba song for about 30 seconds. And you're like, what? And then suddenly they draw on influence of Japanese classical music because you get gongs crashing everywhere. And then you get this massive rapturous chorus come in, and then it goes somewhere else. And then there's a bit where it's layered shouting, like the people of Paris are angry at you, and it gets really distorted. It's insane.
Wow.
And I listened to this when we were on Paris music tour, when we got lost that one night on the coach back in secondary school. We were trying to get back to the hotel, and the driver took a circuitous route to avoid traffic. We got back so late. And I listened to this, and it was so cinematic because it was a night in Paris. It was one night.
It was.
And the main thing of this is One Night in Paris is like a year in any other place. They're saying it is nothing like you will ever experience.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And for me, I think this song is like nothing you will ever experience because it is such a journey in 8.5 minutes or whatever. I love 10cc. I think good prog rock is so artistic and beautiful. And so when I write a 9-minute song like Stars, or when I write The Timekeeper's Lament or anything like that, I hope I can capture Journey in the same way. So that's why I thought I had to include this.
Nice.
Yes.
Cool.
But big 4 points as well.
Thank you. That was a very eloquent answer, I must say.
Thank you.
Again, please.
Speaking of, how can I connect this? Oh, one thing I will say, actually, as I'm typing this out, my answer to your number 6, and number 6 is... I enjoyed you mentioning they sang in a French accent, so you thought it was them, because I agree with the sentiment of what you're saying, that they are ultimately just a few silly boys. 10cc are very silly boys.
They just have some fun.
They have a lot of fun. Some of the stuff is silly. It's really silly. So, My Bloody Valentine, your number 6. The shoegaze kings and queens, arguably. Many people think so. Couldn't remember what this one was called. Tried to play the very dangerous game of figuring out what on earth was being sung in a My Bloody Valentine song. I thought maybe they said breaking down. Oh, no, I missed the word. I'm going to put breaking me down, which is what I have actually typed in my Word document, so I'm not cheating.
Okay.
Probably not right anyway. 1998, can't remember the exact year. Shoegaze. I'm hoping this is one of the more straightforward links to Single Drop in the Ocean.
Yeah, you can have 3 points.
Thank you very much.
It was... Oh, hang on. No, you can have 2 points. Sorry, I got the year wrong. Yeah, it is My Bloody Valentine, yes. The song is Coming Alone. There's a lot of songs on that album off of Loveless that I could have picked for this. It's an album, the more I listen to, I realise... every listen, it's just, I like it more.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Which is really cool. Shoegaze, I put noise rock as well in case you fancied a different genre. That's the only reason. 1991. Single Drop in the Ocean was the link between this. I mean, I haven't listened to a lot of shoegaze, but I do love this album. I think it is very, very good.
Very, very good.
I've listened to stuff like Souvlaki by...
Yes.
Souvlaki,
no? Greek word.
Beyond that, I'm not sure if there's... I mean, some people call the album by Fenej called Venice shoegaze, but it's shoegaze in areas, not shoegaze in others. But so basically that's my way of saying I haven't listened to much shoegaze, but the very basic one is my favourite one.
Yeah,
is what I'm trying to say.
That's fair.
I think they do it very well. It sounds really good, and I don't have much more to say other than for Single Drop, I wanted it to be shoegazy, quite noisy and loud, and my main basis for that is
of course,
My Bloody Valentine.
Of course.
So yeah, I think it was interesting when we were making Single Drop because I wanted to push it in a shoegaze direction. I'm not sure the specific reason why. That's just creatively what it felt like it wanted to do.
I agree with you.
Me,
it just felt like that was what it needed. Yeah.
And I liked that our live version kept it very true to its original one, which we wrote when we were 18, 17.
Yes.
At
shout out Arts Train, great charity
outside of school. That's literally all I have to say. Coming Alone is again, all of their songs are really good. Again, it's a little bit like, as you mentioned, with American football. If it's not something you find that you're drawn to, it's a lot of similar sort of stuff. Yeah. But if you like it, you find that you like all of it because it's all good quality. It's all enjoyable. There you go. 2 points for you.
Yeah, I like the album, but I think I've struggled to ever truly click with it, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think I can't get over the fact that it does all just sound like, in the nicest way, in the most complimentary way possible, blurry guitar noise, which sounds cool. Yeah. But I think, for me, I enjoy it, but it always gets to a point where I think, I could really do like a piano here or something, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like what we've talked about before in terms of separating the artistic merit you find in something and the genuine enjoyment you get out of it. And this is one which I think, when I first heard it, I would have said, artistically, this is really cool. I understand why people love it. But it doesn't do much for me. Exactly. It's only as I've listened to it more that I think, I really like this. I think it's partially my preference of like baggy sort of music, and this takes a lot from that sort of stuff. So that's fun. You're number 7. This is one which when I was listening to it, you gave me a look which made me think I should know this.
That was not the look, don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
But I couldn't really pinpoint it because it's an interesting extract, because it's sort of Baroque, but it's quite dissonant as well. Yes. Which, I mean, for me, goes to two different directions. Okay. It could either be sort of Renaissance sort of time, or it could be 20th century, sort of trying to, I guess, like neoclassical, the sort of stuff Stravinsky would have done in his sort of later career.
Yeah, good shout.
I ended up putting something which I know this piece fairly. I mean, if it's a different movement, that makes sense. But we've sung this at school, so I know it fairly well. I put Gesualdo of Os Omnes, which at the very least is a nice reference, a nice throwback. Choral/classical. There should be sort of Renaissance classical in there. And then 1583. I'm not totally sure on his dates. He might be just into the 17th century, but I don't know.
Your dates are actually not bad. You're not right, but like that. That basically the date you put is like earlier Gesualdo. You're still in Gesualdo time.
Oh, okay.
I think it is Gesualdo.
Yeah.
You've got 2 points here.
Thank you.
Carlo Gesualdo. This is from his 6th Madrigals book. Do I want to try and pronounce that? Yes, I do. Moro, lasso al mio duolo.
Nice.
1611. Renaissance, as you've said, but also, yeah, of course, choral. 2 main things. I wanted to include this, A, because I felt it really important at some point in this game to reference the influence that classical music generally has had on both of us. Yeah. I think in many ways that is our roots.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, we're
classically trained.
We are classically trained, and we have been very much inspired by different moments in classical music. And it may not be as obvious as evident when making an album that those influences are there, but I feel that the classical influences are ones that just exist in the back of your mind, whether you want them there or not. You're going to carry those things. Yeah. It comes with this whole idea, which I really like. I do agree with it, of learn the rules and then break them kind of thing. You can only properly break them once you've learned what they look like. Yeah. And we very much learned the rules. I think we were very good technically when we were studying music. We knew how to analyze sheet music. We knew what we were looking for, kind of thing. So we know the rules, and that's why I think we can break them so well. The second reason I wanted to include this is because I feel that a good chunk of my harmonic understanding comes from choral music. I think there's very little out there. This isn't a hot take, this is just a personal opinion, that I find to be more beautiful than well-written choral music. Ovos Omnes is, I'm glad you referenced it, is the first piece I ever listened to that kind of flirted with just weird chord changes without any sort of preparation for it.
Tertiary modulation.
Tertiary modulations, having one moment being in the major, but then discovering that same major chord shows up, but minor later in the piece, kind of thing. And you're like, what's going on? How's that happened? I think it's that kind of classical route and education, especially with someone like, when we were exposed to Gesualdo, which historically, never expose yourself to Carlo Gesualdo.
Oh, very bad idea.
Bad things will happen.
Very bad idea.
Again, look it up in your own time. But it's why I felt not scared, but quite proud of myself and comfortable when I was writing When the Stars Die, for example, and discovered that I'd written something that wanted to start in F minor in the A section and then have a B section which was F major. I think for some people they look at that and go, what the hell has happened here? But as I was doing it, I thought, this is so cool, man. I don't know how it's happened, but this is so cool.
Yeah.
I mainly wanted it for that thing of harmony coming from our classical training, but also just to shout out the fact that we are still classical music heads.
Yeah.
I could have probably spoken about Debussy with his harmonic influence on me.
Yeah.
I could have probably spoken about John Cage, which, I'll put it very briefly here, is my favourite. I love him. I don't just subscribe to his musical ideas, I subscribe to his philosophical ideas, in that he thinks everything was music. I completely agree. I completely agree with him. But I suppose with John Cage it would have been quite difficult to point to a particular moment in the album and go, "That I got that from John Cage,"
Yeah.
But just know that anytime I write something, he is genuinely always there.
He's a deeper influence.
I just, his ideas, man, different. I'm glad. When you look at a person, you just go, "I'm so glad you existed," kind of thing. Him. But now that I've spoken at length, 2 points for you,
Thank
Chris.
you. Yeah.
I'm very impressed you got the year as close as you did, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, Gesualdo is interesting generally from, especially like Renaissance sort of stuff as well, just from a point of like, it feels like it was a little bit like you were speaking about in terms of rule breaking, like they had very specific.
They did.
Especially in like medieval sort of music, like it would be plain chant and it wouldn't be much beyond that. And then you get composers like Gesualdo who are just running riot with, the chords
Just
and
insane.
stuff. And you haven't even got to Baroque yet, where they've established, harmony and the ways that Bach has.
Yeah, and
it's
we've
fascinating.
got someone off in Spain doing tertiary modulation. It's unbelievable. I think it was Stravinsky who said, when you listen to Gesualdo, and this is really brief paraphrasing, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something like, when you listen to Gesualdo, it's like music hasn't existed for the last 300 years, basically.
Yeah, it's out of place.
Yeah, like all of that structure and all those rules that were created, it's like they just didn't matter to someone 300, 400 years ago.
Yeah.
He is ridiculous.
It's fascinating.
For your number 7, I now have regret over the artist I've put. I'm not going to change it because that would be naughty. But I did keep saying to myself, I was expecting one artist to come. I was two. I thought Hiroshi Yoshimura was going to come up. He came up immediately.
Okay.
And I thought the other one that might come up, because I remember you talking to me about him, was Ariel Pink. I haven't put Ariel Pink here.
Okay.
And looking at the balance of the extras, I think if anyone would be him, it would be this one.
Okay.
But I haven't put it, so I'm not going to say it.
I mean, I haven't said anything, so you're more than welcome to change it if you wish.
No, let's stick with it. Let's be true to ourselves.
Okay.
I did put Guided by Voices because they're one I go to when I can't quite figure out what's going on. I said it was Dead. It sounded like you were saying Dead, and there was like a tolling bell, which made me think could be about death. 1989 alt rock. I like power rock here. I think power rock works.
Yeah.
As like sort of like big punchy chords and things.
Yeah.
A bit noisy, so I said noise rock as well. If I had to say anything, because it was going into process of elimination at this point, so I said Happiest in the Room, which is another reason why in the back of my mind I was thinking Ariel Pink. But if it is Ariel Pink and it is Happiest in the Room, you can tell me a lot. If not, shut me up.
You're very good at explaining, not good at putting pen to paper.
Okay.
It's Ariel Pink. I'll give you a point for genre because noise rock is fair.
No. Okay. The logic's there, but the brain's not willing.
The title is called Negativ Ed. The negative is missing an E. I'm not totally sure why. Maybe it's
Negativ.
Just Ariel Pink being quirky. Hypnagogic pop, psych pop. I think generally people class him as hypnagogic pop, but he's an interesting one where it feels like that's just like a massive arching term for his stuff.
Yeah.
If you listen deeply, his stuff is moving in every direction. 2014, this is off of Pom Pom, the only album I've listened to his. I think I found it hard to know where to go with the rest of his music. Because he's not really an artist who, I guess, traditionally has specific albums that are lauded above others. Pom Pom seems to be the only one.
Is he on the banned list? Is he on the forbidden list?
He's very pro-Trump. So
okay, so he might be,
yeah,
depending on who you are. Yeah,
he is. Yeah, he's. This, as you said, I put as an influence the Happiest in the Room because very much as you described, I think it was at the time where we were making Happiest in the Room. I was talking about, I was quite into this album at the time, and we were chatting about sort of, I guess, the ways in which we were pushing the song, and I think maybe some of the synth choices and just atmosphere choices I was trying to push in an Ariel Pink direction. Now, if I were to really push it in an Ariel Pink direction, I'd have to make it sound like I was playing it through my phone in the toaster.
In the toaster.
That was probably how I would have gone about it.
Your phone melting, yes.
Because it's only when I realised when you turn it, because if you're mastering music, for example, you got to turn everything up so you can hear it properly. I don't often listen to music loud. I get headaches very easily, and that's the main reason. And so it's only when I turn up Ariel Pink's music that I think, oh yeah, this sounds like arse.
Yeah.
In terms of the mixing.
Compliment, yes.
Yeah. In terms of the mixing, you know. And I think that it definitely adds its own flavour to his music, but it's not one in which I was eager to push for Happiest in the Room, let's say. It was more to do with his sort of overall vibe, slightly twee, sort of a bit hypnagogic, sort of weird synths. And I think this is more of a strenuous one. I think when you listen to Happiest, it's not one that goes in that direction specifically. It just sort of is lightly influenced by it. I was really listening to Happiest in the Room the other day because I think when we do our live versions of it, we can forget what the recorder version sounds like. Yes. And I re-listened to it and I thought, yeah.
It sounds good.
Love Happiest in the Room.
All I want to say about this is when I first sent over the guitar files and vocal files to you, I was so firmly of the opinion that this is a folk rock song. This is a folk rock song. And then you had this idea and then sent it back. And my first reaction was, that's not a folk rock song. And then I think I played it to Becky and she was like, Fred, this is gas. This is so cool.
Oh, cool.
And I listened to it again and she was like, dang, Chris and Becky, you're right. They're cooking. This is gas. Yeah. So it's, I think, one of the biggest ones for me where I sent over something and it was as you said, such a joy to be working with someone else because they listen to the same thing you have and they go, this is something completely different. And you listen to it and you go, man, I never would have got that. That's so cool. Yeah. So for me, this was a really cool one to watch develop.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely one I had to win you over on, I think.
You did, but when I was there, as I said, now I listen to it and go, Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll do a folk rock remix in the future. We'll do a remix.
The remix have just taken away all your production. That's basically what it is.
So yeah, you can have a point for that. Good stuff.
Maybe I'll give the lore on how Happiest was written another day. Maybe now, I don't know.
I mean, unless you're talking about it, then in which case you're allowed to discuss it a bit now.
Very briefly, I was unwell coming up to. It would have been December 2023, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I had very weird stomach pains. They never really became anything else. I was poorly. I didn't feel that up to it. My father, much to my lack of knowledge.
December 22, I'll just correct you there.
22.
Yeah. Scary.
That's horrible.
So it would have been the year that we left uni.
That is genuinely disgusting. But he, without telling me, had entered me into a raffle for Black Country New Road tickets.
Oh, yeah.
At Bush Hall. This is Isaac Wood had departed at this point, and so it was going to be all their new stuff. And it was on the day that he said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I've been in this raffle. You've got 2 tickets." I was like, "What? I don't feel well." And I was like, "No, I'm gonna. It will make me feel worse. It will delay my recovery, but I'm going to send it. I need someone to go with though." And I messaged you, and I think you were far too short notice. Of course, you were busy.
I remember. Yeah.
And it, Dad wasn't necessarily up for coming with me. I was like, no one else was going to come with me. And I didn't feel great anyway. And so, much to my own disappointment, I didn't go. And that night, I was, clouded in ennui and regret. And I wrote in that one night, Happiest in the Room.
Wow.
There you go. And that's all because I didn't get to see Black Country New Road. So, in a way, it's good I was unwell. So there you go.
Wow, that's I didn't know that. Didn't know that. Let me. Was it your number 8?
Yeah.
Yes, this is one you've used before, so I was happy to hear it.
I've used everything on this album, man.
I think this was the first Grizzly Bear album you played me, Grizzly Bear song. I think
you're right. I think you're right.
It's called All We Ask by Grizzly Bear. I put Chamber Pop.
Good.
Again, they're an interesting band. I never know specifically what you can put. It's those unique ones where you're like, there could be many different things. 2009, I think, is when Negativ came out.
Yes, it is genuinely.
It's off of.
You've 100%ed a 4-pointer. It's
Thank you.
Goes to show how often I've used this album. Grizzly Bear, All We Ask, 2009, Chamber Pop. This is more so a wider influence again. I wanted to include something by them because very often when I've thought about this LP and my contributions to it or my visions for it, I've always thought I would like it to sound like a combination between an album by, who are we going to say? I'd say Ween, the Beach Boys, Peter Gabriel, and Grizzly Bear, which is 4 very different artists. But I think, particularly with Grizzly Bear and the Beach Boys, when you look at chamber pop, people say, or you look at the artists that have this genre ascribed to them, it's a range of instruments with an emphasis on vocal harmony.
Okay.
And songs that like to sort of travel a bit as well. And I read this the first time, I thought, these are the songs I'm writing. This is how I'm writing songs. And I already liked Grizzly Bear so much, but I discovered this and I realised, I was listening to certain Grizzly Bear tracks in New Light and I thought, in another life, I could have written this. Not in like an arrogant way, not in a way of like, I'm as good as Grizzly Bear. I'd never want to say that.
But it's got like the same kind of sound
that you want.
Same kind
of sound, exactly. Yeah. I think All We Ask is a very good example of the album because it's not one of their big poppy ones. It's not one of their radio ones, but it has such an emphasis on Daniel Rosson's acoustic guitar. You have vocals from both Ed Drost and Daniel Rosson. The drumming's beautiful. It shifts in the extract I've given you into that outro section at the end, out of nowhere, seemingly. And I like how we also like a good outro. Negativ for me is, if I had to, I know it was one of the things I asked you in an interview question. Is there any album you'd recommend someone listen to prepare for the Eliot 20 LP? And you said Quebec, which I thought was a brilliant answer by Ween. I'd probably end up picking any Peter Gabriel album because I love him, or Veckatim Est for me. So there you have it. 4 points.
Cool. Thank you.
Daniel Ross, and I've said it so many times, I love you, man. I love you. Yeah. So, your number 8. I recognise this one. This is... I think I've said this to you before, but I'll say it again. This is my favourite Strokes song.
Really?
Genuinely.
Well, this might make what I'm about to say about it a bit different, but okay, no.
We'll see.
This will be fun.
I think it's close to Hard to Explain. I think I really like Hard to Explain as well.
Yeah.
But now I'm saying it, you've got a couple of tracks off Room on Fire, which I like. And then Undercover of Darkness is a banger as well. Yeah. This is still probably, I think it's the most cinematic thing they've ever made. And I like what I perceive the message to be in it. This is, I thought it was, The Strokes, At the Door. I think 2020. I think that's when the new Abnormal came out, but I could be wrong. Alt-rock, indie rock, or post-punk revival. I'm going to anticipate this is something to do with Timekeeper's Lament.
Yeah, so you've got 4 points.
Okay, thank you.
This is the Joker.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
and
cool.
I used it as a joker because I thought it would be really funny.
Yeah, it is funny. You'll find out why.
Because, well, I guess when you do a game like this, you think, okay, we're talking about stuff we're influenced by. So if we're using a joker, what should the joker be? It should be something that we're not influenced by.
Yes.
And this leads into now.
Do you remember the guy's name?
Do you know what? I've looked it up and I've got it here.
Oh, you're actually going to read it?
So I'll read the important points.
So as Chris is getting off, I'll just say we've had 2 public reviews ever about our work. One was commissioned by the great Duncan Reviews, one of my favourite music accounts. He is so voracious, the amount of music he gets through. So that's why I trust his opinion, because he listens to so much. He has a 5-star ranking system. He gave us 4 out of 5, which for a Duncan Review
very lucky.
Is a very good review. I was so chuffed when I discovered
he
that.
He writes very, very well about it as
well.
Yeah, he's very good at what he does.
But we've also had another one.
Yes, so, I thought that this might have been off of the back of the Duncan review that we got.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
This person online has seen it and gone, okay, I'll listen to it and do a review of it myself, which is, not nice. I think it's nice to, look up your name sometimes and see a website that you haven't clicked on yet.
Well, we do exist in the public eye now, however minimally. Yeah. So, there's always a chance.
Yeah, so it's nice to see that our stuff is, seen.
Yes.
I guess. And we got this review from, I'm not going to name them, because I think...
From an individual.
Yeah, from someone on... it's very easy to find anyway, but...
we haven't got many reviews. I have said how many we have, so it's not difficult to find if you want to find it.
And it wasn't a bad review.
No, we got a decent score and everything.
In terms of the score for the album, they gave us a 7 out of 10, which for some reason I always compare with like Anthony Fantano. And
it's a good score!
In terms of like scores, where would he put like a 7 out of 10? That's good. So I think, okay,
better than My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. There you go.
Yeah. But I think the way that they wrote the review made it seem like they didn't like the album. It was very sort of like, I don't think this is great.
Yeah.
This could be better. And then like the last section was basically, but apart from that, it's really good.
Yeah, apart from that, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, I don't dislike it. I just think, it leads into a lot of what I believe in, that, I think, I really respect your sort of more journalistic endeavours.
Thank you.
In music.
Thank you.
I just think that they're ones in which I don't want to do as much.
Of course, I understand why.
Because I've got more of an internal struggle with how I understand music reviewing, because when it comes to music, again, it leads into what I've spoken about before, the distinction between artistic merit and genuine enjoyment.
Yes, which is tough, you know.
And so I think when you review an album, it feels like most of the time you should review it on what you find the artistic merit to be in the album.
Yes.
And I think sometimes that can be confused with genuine enjoyment. And so, you know, I think when I talk about music, I try to talk about it in terms of why I love it, which can be harder because sometimes you love something for reasons you don't really know.
Of course.
And so
Very well said.
Thank you. And so when it comes to reviews and looking at reviews, I try to look at it with a pinch of salt.
You must. You have to. I do remember before we even had any kind of thought of ever being reviewed, a while ago having conversations with you about this, and I still feel the same, which is I was aware that we were going to exist somewhat in the public eye, but my thought was always that any review, whether positive or negative, at the end of the day isn't going to bother me too much because I'm still going to keep making what I want to make. Yeah. And as long as the people whose opinions truly matter to me, as long as they like it, it's something I've found myself doing with university, because I submitted a lot of poetry at university, and very often the first thing people would say when I brought it to classes would be, well, I don't really read much poetry, so I don't know what to say. And it was at that point that I heard, well, actually, I didn't hear them. I stopped listening because it was like, well, you've just told me your opinion's rubbish. So, you know, so what I did was I developed, like, I know that I can trust this person and this person and this person. If they say it's bad, I will genuinely listen to it. Which is why, if it's someone I've never met before, I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to go, whatever. But I'm going to go, oh, that's interesting, and then get on with my day.
Yeah, you're just going to be a bit more sceptical about it. Yeah. And the reason that I've used the track At the Door by The Strokes, alt rock / for some reason, Rate Your Music used synth pop, so I thought, yeah,
I think that's not unfair. That's not unfair.
And yeah, it's exactly as you said, basically 2020. The reason I used it is because one of the lines in their review says, "There's no way I would walk away from the song The Timekeeper's Lament without ever getting reminded of The Strokes' At the Door. Come on, man, the parallel is blunt." It's
blunt.
That song is still pretty good anyway.
Blunt.
Which, I mean, I find it funny reading it because it's like it's a connection someone's made with your song with a different song, which you wouldn't have made yourself.
No.
And that's interesting a lot of the time. I think it's different in this regard because it feels more like they're saying, oh, it's clear where you've got this from. You know, it sounds so similar or whatever. It doesn't feel positive, I guess. It
doesn't feel positive, no.
It doesn't feel like they're saying, you know, when I listen to this track, it reminds me of this track and I like this track, so that's why I like it, or something like that. And so, well, I guess when you said that it might be your favourite Strokes song, I thought, well, hang on, maybe he's subconsciously done this.
Look, what I'll say is that I think I've already referenced 2 songs that I did genuinely use for inspiration for The Timekeeper's Lament in this game. So I'm hoping for the outsider listening to this that makes it obvious enough that I haven't ripped off At the Door by The Strokes, which I do love. And as I've already made clear as well, everyone's entitled to think what they think. Doesn't bother me at all. You know, I remember when this came out, I just found it funny more than anything else. I still do. Yeah,
but it's interesting to see the comparisons people make.
Exactly. But, you know, I'll wait for the court case. So, you know, I'll wait for that.
No, I mean, again, I found it interesting. I think if you find a review that's very sort of slating on your stuff, then I think it can be a bit hard to take. But it did seem like they were interested. And again, the score is very good.
It is a good score. I think what I'd say about if we ever did get review that was very negative, I'd only pay heed to it if it wasn't just like personal. You know, if it was something like, oh, I didn't like this because effectively what they're saying is it didn't sound good in my ears, I'd read that and go, so what? But if it was someone actively critiquing it, you know, like actively going, I didn't like this because I thought these chords didn't go well together, or I thought the use of this instrumentation didn't work, or this was too piercing, or the production on this, whatever. If it was an actually, you know, constructed point, I wouldn't be offended, but at that point I go, okay, maybe I'll listen. Maybe there's something worth improving on here. You know?
Yeah. Well, it's my philosophy that you can always learn something from anyone,
of course,
even if there's someone.
Stop stealing from the Strokes,
like.
Basically. Yeah.
So yeah, that's become a bit of an inside joke between us, I think. So,
and now you're all invited to join in.
Yeah. So yeah, but again, it's not a bad score. I just think that the way that they wrote about it made it seem like it was not as good as they actually thought. But
yes,
for our stuff to be reviewed anyway is still quite special. Again, by someone who is not at all, obliged to review our stuff.
Not affiliated
they
to
just
us at
do it
all.
Because they like reviewing stuff.
Someone went out of our way and listened to our music, and I still think that's really nice.
Yeah,
so,
it's awesome. Yeah. So thank you for the review. Let's move on to what's the next one? Let me see. Okay.
The main takeaway of that actually is that we haven't got enough reviews, so people write some articles on us.
Yeah. I think this was Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
Some interesting bass stuff that reminded me of XTC. I think I can't remember. There's a track off of there. I can't remember the name of the album. It's the one with Making Plans for Nigel off of. I think it's called Helicopter, where the bass does some interesting octave stuff, which it sort of does similar to this, and I find it quite interesting. Yeah, it reminded me, and it was cool. I said it was called I Can't Remember. You might have played it to me before. We might have listened to this album before, in which case I wouldn't have remembered. I bet Synth Pop 1984. There you go.
I'm going to give you 2.5.
Okay.
Because it's don't remember, not can't remember. And he does say it. That's why I'm being half nice and half cruel. It is Peter Gabriel. I don't remember 1980. I wouldn't say synth pop myself.
Okay.
I'd say art rock or kind of post punky.
Fair enough.
I think it was a given. I had to include him if I'm talking about what influences me musically.
Of course.
What's influenced me in this album. I think the only person that could rival Peter Gabriel's influence on me generally in life, in music, is John Cage. Because it's the influence is so strong that it is now subconscious kind of thing. It happens without me trying. I discovered Peter Gabriel at like 5 or 4, and for some reason I was so into what he was doing that I became addicted. My father fostered the addiction by buying me an album every 3 or 4 months, kind of thing. And when one showed up, I didn't understand how albums worked at that young age, of course, so I thought he'd only just released it, kind of thing. I was like, oh, this is exclusive. How's Dad got his hands on this? And I would either play it on one of the music systems we had in the house, or Dad would donate me the Walkman at the time, and I would just sit down and I would just listen to it, because at that age you don't have taxes to file or invoices to complete. You can just have the time to sit down and listen to a Peter Gabriel album in full. So this is influence from like almost, I don't know, like 15 years ago, something like that. Longer ago. Almost 20 now, which is horrible to think. So I have never, apart from, genuinely the only person who has had more influence than Peter Gabriel is my father on my music taste. And that is quite scary in a way, but nice. His length of song influences me to write songs which I frustratingly cannot make any shorter. The physical incapacity to do so. I know we talk about Ween being the ultimate genre hoppers. Peter Gabriel, underrated genre hopper. He's a chameleon. He does it too. On this album, you've got noise rock as well. You've got the Ballad of Biko on the same album. You've got jazz at one point, like a jazz interlude, which is okay. His ability to experiment, his willingness to experiment. I know across this album and the next one, 4, which has things like Shock the Monkey on it, he did just go to a big scrap heap and smash stuff, and he recorded each sound, and then he put each sound into a synth in his studio. So he had like the sound of a television screen smashing, but in a scale. So you got tush, 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 and that's how he made his percussion loops and things.
Interesting. Wow.
I know on this album, the often mentioned behind the scenes production information on this is that he told his drummers that they weren't allowed to use any metal, no cymbals, no nothing, which is part of the reason why the album is so dark and brooding. There's no light of a crash anywhere. It's just heavy. I also very fondly remember being on holiday somewhere in England, and because I was young, when I asked for the music in the car, my parents said, of course, you're young, we'll play whatever you want. And so they put this album on for me, and it was only halfway through the first track that my mother couldn't help herself from saying, this is drug music, which it kind of is. It sounds kind of messed up at points. It's so weird. But it's that ability to be weird, to experiment, to write long songs and feel comfortable in it, to challenge yourself to go into a different genre, but also then to be able to write one of the greatest pop albums of all time, in my opinion. That's why I feel like I can be so comfortable to change myself as well, which is not an arrogant thing. I'm not saying I'm the greatest person ever. I'm so flexible. It's just to demonstrate that I'm comfortable. I feel comfortable doing it. It's not to say I'm good at it. It's just I feel comfortable doing it. And I think that's a really important attribute. Yeah. And I can be no more grateful to anyone than him, unless it's my dad. Yeah. So that's why I thought I had to include
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are just very happy sticking with what they know.
Of course.
I think it's something that I believe. You only truly know how good you are creatively if you do push and see what you can do.
I completely agree with you.
That's one of the reasons why I try to do it.
I think you must. I think if you work in any artistic medium, it's so important to test yourself and stretch yourself to keep things fresh, unless you've discovered a sound which you are so good at. And I'd refer to bands like Beach House again, or Cocteau Twins, or even though Cocteau Twins evolved, The Strokes. They found a genre and they found an aesthetic that suits them, but they're so good at it that they don't necessarily even need to push the boat out that much. They can just keep doing it over and over again. And schmucks like me listen to it and go, you geniuses, how you've done it again. But yeah, no one will ever make me hate you, Peter Gabriel. I didn't know what your number 9 was. But it was another electronic-y one. I'd go so far as to say another ambient one. Maybe new age. That elusive genre. What is the new age? I thought it can't be Yoshimura again, also because I've listened to all of Yoshimura. I didn't recognise it. So I've gone for, the man who wishes he was Yoshimura, Brian Eno.
He went there.
My feigned hatred of Brian Eno always cracks me up. I like him. I like him. I've gone for a sort of mix with Yoshimura. I said this was also called Green, because I couldn't think of anything. 79, I just tried to think of Bowie's years and then put them alongside Eno. Ambient new age. In my notes, I've written What You Want, What Is Not Yet Lost inspiration. Don't know why. I think I was running out of links to make. Maybe for like the sort of marimba-y stuff going on in that track. Okay.
You have 1 point.
I'll take the one graciously.
What I'll start off by saying is, when we use this sort of music, usually it's hard to distinguish it from just normal ambient sort of composers and stuff.
That's true.
There's a piece from a video game.
Oh, very good.
Because whenever you play video game music, a lot of the time I'll be listening to it in the thought of, what ambient composers made this?
Yes.
When really, you should be thinking, what video game is this from?
Yeah, it's just some... Yeah. It is just a video game composer who has exceeded their assignment and produced something that's a standalone quality,
Yeah. So this is a piece from the game Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door.
As soon as you said it, I knew it was going to be
one of my favourite soundtracks of all time. Not a game I've played, but for good reason, because that game is blimmin' hard to get your hands on, let me tell you. They retail at like CEX for over £100 or something, because there's so few copies out there. I'm guessing it was just limited at the time it came out, but I've watched playthroughs and it looks like a blimmin' good game. So I know they've done a remake, so maybe I'll play the remake at some point. It's not going to be as pertinent. They have remixed the music a bit and some of the tracks are a bit different, which fair enough. But yeah, back in the day it was composed by a composer called Yuka Tsujiyoko. I think I've pronounced that right.
You're giving it a good go. I wouldn't know much better. So
I think there was another composer who had their hands in it as well. I'm not sure if she did it all herself or if there was someone else. Obviously inspired by the great Koji Kondo, the Mario composer.
Yes.
This is called the Great Boggly Tree. Yes.
You've given me this one before.
I think I've used other ones. I don't think I've given you this one before.
Okay. Maybe you've referenced it. Which would make sense.
Yeah. It's from... I can't remember which section of the game. It's like the second section of the game. You would know if you've played it or watched playthroughs of it. Video game music / ambient. 2004 is when it came out, which always bugs me. Like the soundtrack is so cool and it feels very new, and I'm like, 2004.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty early, it feels. This was an inspiration for, and then there was a time it came down in droves. We're getting to the point where I'm not reusing, but using songs that we've made again. We've discussed this a couple times before, and we're discussing it again.
Fred's interlude isn't going to get a mention in this game. Poor Fred's interlude.
But yeah, this was one of the ones that was on the text document of initial influences for.
That's probably where I recognise it from. Yeah.
It was just a song I remember when we were talking about influences, and I thought it would be cool if it went in this direction. Like some of the sounds that were being used felt almost modular, like modular synth sort of stuff, which I've played around with, and it's blooming hard to get your head around. Tell you.
I can imagine.
We did a module at uni, and I was just about able to compose a piece. It was hard. Have since forgotten everything I did for it as well. But
see, the joy I think of music and electronic music, maybe especially, is just tinkering. So maybe we'll buy you a big modular synth and you can just play about with it.
But yeah, I don't have too much to say about this other than it was an inspiration. I think it inspired some of the more electronic-y sort of sounds. I think just a general feeling of space. I remember when I listen to it, it feels big.
Yes.
And I feel like I tried to encompass that in droves. Although I think,
which does sound big, actually, especially the middle section. It sounds big.
I think a lot of it came from the ambient sounds of it, and not so much the production-y stuff.
Yeah.
But inspiration nonetheless, I suppose. I don't have too much more to say about it. I'll leave it there.
Okay.
1 point.
Good. I'll take the 1 point. Very early on in this game, I thought, Hiroshi Shimura, Radiohead. Going to be big scoring here. No. The Nick Drake thing, I think, has cemented my fate. I couldn't come back after that.
That was a tough moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Final extracts. You're number 10.
Yeah.
This now, I know you mentioned the John Cage thing of everything can be music. This, well, if you were to call it music, you'd call it spoken word.
You would.
But it felt more like someone reading a poem.
Okay.
So I put poetry. My knowledge of poets isn't great. Different. Discord has said Cruelis is spelled with 1 L, and Notepad says it's spelled with 2 L's. So
I would have said
that's odd.
2 myself.
Maybe
that'd be my gut reaction.
Maybe 1 is the American spelling, possibly. We'll leave it at 2. I said it was titled April is the Cruelest Month, just because that's what he said. I presume it's probably called something different. Again,
it's 2. Yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm not versed with poetry. You're very versed. You know a lot about poetry. I'm not very good when it comes to my poets. So I put one that I think is British. I had Edgar Allan Poe on the brain for a long time.
Sure.
And I was like, no, I'm sure he's American, because I know about the what's his name, the Poe toaster.
The what?
Have you heard about the Poe toaster?
No.
He was a guy who, after Edgar Allan Poe's death, which was a bit mysterious, I'm not sure if it was mysterious or it was just that he died young or whatever, but it was this guy who, I think it was every year on the anniversary of his death, he'd go to Edgar Allan Poe's grave and he'd propose a toast, basically. But no one really knew who he was, and he'd just sort of do it. And
it's interesting.
And the tradition has been kept on by the residents of Baltimore.
Oh, nice.
And so that's nice. But I didn't put him. I didn't put Edgar Allan Poe because, again, I'm pretty sure he's American.
Yeah.
I put T.S. Eliot. I'm not sure if he's American or British. Again, not good with poetry. If you find me on the street, don't ask me what my favourite poem is. I can't tell you.
The national anthem. 2 points.
Thank you.
Most impressive one being that it is T.S. Eliot.
What?
Yes.
It's got to be the luckiest point ever in this game. Wow.
From my Nick Drake era to this. Yeah. This is called The Wasteland. Written in 1922.
Oh, I see. I had no idea he was a more recent writer.
Yeah, the last century. Very much last century. Modernist poetry. Now, where do I start with this? I've chosen this. I wanted to end on a brief discussion of something which is incredibly important to me when I write music, which is lyrics. And having done my creative writing and English literature and creative writing degree, having read a lot of poetry, having written a lot of poetry, listened to a lot of music as well, but I think it's more so that I come to listen to music with the ears of a poet rather than a musician.
Okay.
And so I you know this more than most, I am so critical about lyricism. I know I am, probably in a way that isn't healthy sometimes. But I try my best to channel that into what I write as well. What I've learned about poetry, the philosophies, and what I think poetry and lyrics should look like, in my opinion. A lot of people would say, if you were to talk to them about The Wasteland, a lot of critics and people with big opinions would say it is arguably the greatest poem of all time. Some people may go even further and say it's the greatest piece of Western literature of all time.
Wow.
You could read it in about 6 or 7 minutes. It's an epic poem, 5 parts, I think. It's an epic poem, but the point is it's not an epic poem because it's short. I think to someone who doesn't study poetry, look at that, it's still quite long. If you were to tell someone who knows about poetry that's an epic poem, and then they were to look at it for the first time, they go, "You got to be joking, right? Why does this not go into like the 50s and 60s of pages? What are you talking about?" So you could get through in about 7 minutes or whatever. Alternatively, you could probably spend your whole life studying it and not get to the bottom of it. It is so dense. The bit I've given you is the very opening. It's iconic. That opening line, "April is the cruelest month," is so powerful as an opener. It's everyone who studies English knows April is the cruelest month. Because every other word references a mythology or a religious text or a philosophy or an ancient myth or a legend or something social or something political or another poem or another book or something written in another language. A lot of people critique it for being arrogant, and I understand why, because he also footnotes everything in the proper version. So every time he references something, he puts a note about it, which I think is cool, man. I think it's just him going, yeah, I'm very clever. But it is so dense. It is so rich. The amount of time you could spend analysing it. I did spend time analysing it for maybe only a week at university because we had to go on to the next text for the next week. I could have spent the entire 3-year course talking about this, man. There is so much going on. So he's not just talking about seasons in the opening. I can't remember exactly what he's referring to. April is the cruelest month. But it's something so clever. And as I said, some people will look at it and go, "This is really arrogant." I look at it and go, "This might be the most inspiring thing I've ever looked at." Because it is so intelligent. And it's that sort of intelligence that I aspire to. And again, this sounds arrogant. I hope I'm not coming across as going, "I want to be really clever. I want to be smarter than you and you and you." That's not what I'm saying. I want to write things that make people think is the basic way of me putting it.
Yeah, you want to have the effect on someone that someone has had on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was inspired. Someone who taught him is another poet called Ezra Pound, who's a huge inspiration for me as well, because he writes really tricky stuff as well. My idea for philosophy and poetry, and by extension lyrics, is that, and as how I put it to you before, the words have to buckle. The words have to break. And I think people hear me say that and go, "What the hell are you talking about?" But when you write a book, you're allowed a bit of space to use, connecting words, and you can use just more words. You can just use more words. You're writing a book. You have about 300, 400 pages if you want. You can describe things in a lot of detail. The reader has to do very little work if you want them to. You can give them everything. This is how it looked. This is what he looked like. This is what he said. This is what happened next, but I'm going to tell you before it happens next for suspense, because the characters don't know, but you'll know. And it'll be like, oh no, don't walk in there, you know? I like poetry because it does the opposite. It gives you so little. I think the best poetry gives you so little, but it creates a feeling and an atmosphere, and it challenges you to go, right, make up your mind, tough boy, come on. Come on, tough guy, smart guy, come on. What do you think it means? Come on. What does it mean to you? That's what I like. When I read The Wasteland, it's interesting to know what his intent was and why it's so clever. But I like the fact that it means something to me that it probably doesn't mean to someone else.
Yeah.
And that's because the way he's used the words is so clever. Every single word has fought to be there. With a book, you can, you know, put in an and. Why not? That one, April is or April was the cruelest month. You think about that. It's... I'm ranting now, I'm sorry. But... The Wasteland is impeccable as a piece of literature. No one, I think, will ever write anything like this, ever. It is one of these... It's like listening to Smile for the first time by the Beach Boys and you go, this is alien. Brian Wilson shouldn't have been able to think of harmony like this. T.S. Eliot shouldn't have been able to think of words like this. It shouldn't be possible, to me. I know I'll never write like that, but I'll try. And so I hope when people listen to what I'm, you know, jabbering on about in these songs... that I don't, you know, people come up to me and go, Fred, what does that mean? Why do you talk about this? And, you know, I don't necessarily want to give an answer because it's like, I don't want to give, I want you to have an opinion.
Yeah.
I want it to mean something to you. I don't want you to listen to it and go, oh, this is what Fred meant. You know, I haven't experienced this, but it's what he meant and that's cool, which is, yeah, interesting. I like the context stuff, but I want it to mean something to you. I want you to make a connection. So please do. And I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to encourage anyone who's into poetry, Wasteland and Ezra Pound, English language kings. I love words, man. I love words. I'll leave it there. I'm glad I got the opportunity to speak about it, so I'll leave it there.
Yeah, cool. It's very fitting that you end the game with what you think has inspired you the most, maybe.
I think
or something incredibly pivotal to how you.
I very often will come to lyrics as the most important thing, because I think, you know, when you listen to a song, I know a lot of people just want it to sound good, which of course has to. Otherwise, why would you listen to it? But I want it to mean something as well. So I try very hard to make them mean something. Anyway, enough about T. Very impressive pull. T.S. Eliot, very impressive pull.
That was probably the biggest guess I've ever done. That was a random one.
That could be a top 10 Chris Whiteboard Game moment, that. So for this one, your last one, was another electronic key one, or another instrumental one. I, because of that, couldn't quite figure out who it was. So I just kind of sent something. I said HKE, which I doubt it is. Hong Kong Express, vaporwave, slushwave, synthwave producer. I said Steamboat, don't know why, just felt like it. Felt like it fit. 2018, I said synthwave or ambient. I did write as a reference, and then there was a time it came down in droves. But we had that twice now. He couldn't do it a third time, could he? Could he?
It's not, and then there was a time it came down in droves. I realised I haven't put a year for this. I'm just putting that in. You can have 1 point.
I'll take the 1 point. I'll graciously take the 1 point. This is by... You were right to think along the lines of vaporwave. Okay. But it is St. PEPSI. This is a... What? This answer, man. Okay.
It's an... well, not an earlier St. PEPSI one. It's sort of like in like the bulk of his heyday. It's off of Empire Building, which I think was like...
I've listened to it once. I'm going to let myself off. I've listened to it once.
I mean, the amount of music that he put out in this time...
Stupid.
Within about the space of like 6 months. Yeah, it's a track called Field Day. I put Vaporwave, Future Funk. Future Funk is more of like his latest stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. 2013. I've put Loss of Fun as the one it inspired.
Insane.
Now, it's a little bit like the Aphex Twin one with stars.
Really interesting, yeah.
In terms of... It is to do with the sort of synth lead in like the midsection. It's to do with something it does. One of the melody things it uses.
Mm-hmm.
So generally the synth just plays a melody, but there's at points where it...
I always thought this was a Black Moth Super Rainbow synth line.
We can get to that.
Oh my gosh! Okay, so I'm
get
going to
to that.
I'm going to shut up.
So I mean, the synth line is it does this thing where it goes blah,
Yes.
sort of. And well, when I wrote it in to Loss of Fun, I didn't know where I'd been inspired by that because I just put it in and I went, now I know I've heard that in at least one place.
Very honest of you.
I don't know where I found it.
This was my idea. Had it all along.
And it was in listening to stuff that I found where it's from. It's from two places. Mm-hmm. The first one is this, St. Pepsi Field Day. Now, of course, he sampled this, so it would have been used. It would have been used in a different track. I'm not sure what the sample is. I'm not sure if I've ever looked up on who sampled who it is, but I think the vibe of it sort of made it more pertinent for me with the synth line because it's like a quick riff, but let's say, for example, the fact that he's slowed down whatever he's working with, it would have been quite quick, so it would have had a different feeling. The other place it was in a Black Moth Super Rainbow song in a track off of Starter People called Viet Caterpillar.
Yeah.
Which does a very similar thing.
I don't know why I
with the
said that.
synth
I've
lines.
listened to the album. I haven't listened to it yet.
You need to.
I know I do. I tell you what, brief side point, that Fred Bloy list of artists to listen to, I put in work recently.
Okay.
Put in work. Anyway, please continue.
Well, I look forward to our next game. Those are the two places that I realised that I'd been inspired by it. Very similar to the Stars one in that it is just something I... like a small part, like a more specific part of the song than just like a general bit of inspiration. And in that sense, I don't have any more to talk about it. So I guess, the 10th one, we always try to chat a little bit more about it. And I don't think any of these I had a large amount to chat about because they're all just general.
Yeah, direct song
inspirations.
links. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's my answer. My answer. That is
the answer.
That's the answer, yes. And as I say, you can have a point for it.
Thank you very much.
There you go. I think I said Loss of Fun was what it inspired, yeah.
Yes.
There's a synth line in that
If
song.
it isn't too much to ask.
In that bit.
Yeah. It's almost like I know the song or something.
It's almost like you worked on it. Okay. Math time.
Yeah. Look, much to my redemption, I'm not sure getting that extra silly point I lost on the Nick Drake thing would have changed the result here. So let me just double check this.
Yeah, okay.
Always the most embarrassing bit, the silence, as we add up the numbers, because people know exactly what we're doing and they can judge us for how quick we're being. Right, so I do have a number.
All right.
I have a final score. We add up our scores. Not that it's about winning, especially in this game, probably not about winning, just about sharing something the details of something we've worked very hard on. We hope you have listened to it. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't listened to it, once we've finished here, get on with it. So, I'll do the countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Nice.
There you go. Well played.
Okay, I wasn't sure if this was going to be a one where we score a lot better than we usually do. But to be fair, it's... I guess for the fact that we didn't have a fifth category, so the maximum you could get was 40 points. I suppose it's a bit different, but...
Well, look, now that you've mentioned that, the max being 40 points, you dropped 12. So that's really good. I suppose so. That's a really good score.
Yeah. What did you get?
I got 22.
And I got 28.
So congratulations, Chris. Chris wins this round.
One win each to start off the
Series 2, one win each.
2.
Yes, with a decent gap each game, I think, between the scores. Am I right in thinking that? Yeah. So maybe we're alternating turns on who's being mean and who's not, kind of thing.
Maybe, yeah.
So whatever the next game is, maybe I'll just harsh noise, just exclusively harsh noise for Chris. So yeah, we hope you enjoyed this one. In fact, why am I wrapping up? Chris is on intro and wrapping up duty today. Chris, please.
Well, yeah, as Fred said, we thank you for listening. We hope that if you have listened to the album, you have a bit of a better idea of our influences, where we might have, been influenced by certain things. You might have listened to the album and gone, oh, they've got to be influenced by this person.
Timekeeper's Lament sounds awfully like Avatar.
and then you've listened to this and gone, oh, that's not where I thought they got their influence at all. So maybe, hopefully it's interesting. Hopefully, a little bit more about the album. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the album as well. Again, let us know what you think about it.
Please do.
Write a review online.
Yes.
We definitely won't read it and talk about it in our next podcast and talk about why we do and don't like it.
No. Look, I think it's not even an issue. I think the reason why we spoke about that review in the way we've done is maybe the tone he took when saying that.
Maybe, yeah.
I would, if someone thought, oh, it sounds like this song, I wouldn't really care. It was like, come on, man, and they used the word blunt. It's like, come on, okay, fair enough, whatever.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you for listening. We're going to wrap up now.
We are going to wrap up,
and we usually wrap up in a certain fashion. So
we do in a certain fashion. What an honour it is to do a whiteboard game. Something we have, the two of us, been doing for 4 years?
5.
5 years. So we've been recording it. This is the second series, as you know.
We haven't been recording it for 5 years.
No, but we've been playing it for 5 years.
We've been playing it for 5 years.
Back in the days where Idiotwin didn't exist. Little did we know.
It weren't even a word that existed.
No. Little did we know that we would become that thing. Now we've got an album out. So, if you don't want to listen to it, at the very least, send us a message going, congrats. That would be nice. Or just listen to the Whiteboard Game. Actually, what am I doing? Listen to the album. We worked so hard. Listen to the album. I like it. He likes it. Listen to it. Tell us what your favourite song is. Tell us what your favourite moment it is. Tell us why you think it sounds like At the Door. But as Chris has said, we wrap up these games in a certain way. This one, like any other. Idiotwin forever, but not just Idiotwin forever.
Whiteboard Game forever.